October's Social Security schedule is about to blindside millions of Americans. Again. This isn't some bureaucratic error. It's not a glitch. It's the result of a cold, mechanical system that does exactly what it's programmed to do. Shift payments based on weekends and federal holidays, no matter the consequences. This October, that system is triggering a financial landmine. 2 payments in 1 month and none in the next. Looks like a bonus. Feels like a windfall. But it's not. It's a trap. For anyone living on a fixed income,
backhand index pointing right. If this information helped you, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're always one step ahead. We break down important updates like this clearly so you're never caught off guard. Join our community, stay informed, and take control of your financial future, starting today. Flexed Biceps Calendar.
SSI, SSDI, Social Security Retirement, VA benefits. This isn't just inconvenient. Dangerous. Rent, groceries, prescriptions, utility bills, they don't wait. But the system sure does. And in October, it's skipping November altogether for some recipients. Here's what's happening. Because November 1st lands on a weekend, and the government won't process payments on non-business days, a massive chunk of monthly benefits will be pushed up to the end of October. For many, that means seeing a deposit hit early. October 31st instead of November 1st. But the calendar won't warn you. There's no blinking red light saying, "Don't spend this now." Looks like your usual monthly check. Until you hit November and the next one never comes. This is how beneficiaries get caught off guard, thinking they've received an extra deposit, treating it like extra cash, not realizing it's their only check for the month ahead. And then the financial spiral begins. Overdrafts, missed bills, late fees, skipped medications. Not because people were reckless, but because the system is silent about how it works. The worst part. It's not new. This happens every year. A predictable pattern of chaos caused by rigid banking rules and holiday weekends. It's a failure of communication. It's a failure of design. And every time it hits the most vulnerable. Those who can't afford to miss a payment, those already budgeting down to the dollar. The people who survive these calendar traps are the ones who know what's coming. They don't spend the October 31st deposit. They label it November and guard it like rent money. 'Cause that's what it is. Not a gift. Not a bonus. Survival money. And still, every cycle thousands are blindsided. They call the Social Security office in a panic. They think their payment was lost, delayed, stolen. But the truth is colder than that. It was early. That's it. That's the whole explanation. An automated system moved the deposit to a business day. And the federal government called it good enough. This isn't about policy failure. It's about structural indifference. About a system that expects the poorest Americans to adjust to its schedule instead of adjusting to theirs. And unless people know the pattern, unless they're educated, they pay the price. Every single time. October is not just another month on the calendar for Social Security beneficiaries. It's a financial trap waiting to spring, if you're not prepared. The Social Security Administration is shifting payment dates in October 2023 due to how weekends and holidays collide with the standard deposit schedule. And if you don't know what's coming, you could be left scrambling to pay rent, cover your bills, or even buy groceries. This isn't a glitch. This isn't mismanagement. It's a predictable, systemic shakeup tied directly to the way the federal system processes payments. And yes, it's happening again. Let's be crystal clear. Some beneficiaries will receive 2 payments in October, and none in November. That's not a bonus. That's not a gift. It's a shift. And if you treat that early money like it's extra, November will hit hard, and it'll hit fast. So what's driving this disruption? It comes down to the federal government's rigid rules. If a payment date falls on a weekend or federal holiday, it gets moved. Banks don't process deposits on those days. That means payments scheduled for early November are getting pulled into the last days of October. It's all by the book, but if you're not paying attention, it can feel like a sucker punch. And here's where things get even more complicated. Not everyone gets their benefits on the same day. Depending on your specific program, SSI, SSDI, Social Security Retirement, VA benefits, And depending on when your birthday falls or when you first started receiving benefits, your payment could arrive on a completely different date from your neighbors. For example, Supplemental Security Income, SSI, recipients are particularly impacted. SSI payments are typically issued on the first of each month. But if that date lands on a weekend or holiday, the payment moves earlier. In October 2023, that means SSI recipients will get 2 payments in October, on October 1st and again on October 31st, and none in November. If you're not prepared, that November gap can cause chaos. And if you rely on SSDI or retirement benefits and your birthday falls in the first 10 days of the month, your check typically arrives on the second Wednesday. Birthdays from the 11th to 20th. That's the third Wednesday. Birthdays from the 21st onward. The fourth Wednesday. But those Wednesdays can shift forward depending on how weekends fall. And when those payment shifts coincide with SSI's adjusted schedule, that's where the confusion explodes. None of this is new. Happens every year in some form. But that doesn't mean it's easy to deal with. Because when you're living on a fixed income, especially if you're already stretching every dollar, these schedule changes can feel like the system is rigged against you. Let's get to the heart of the issue. The October 31st deposit for SSI is not bonus money. It is November's money, just delivered early because November 1st falls on a day when banks won't process the deposit. If you spend that money right away in October thinking you've got extra cash, you're setting yourself up for a very painful start to November. No rent, no groceries, no power bill money. This is how people end up paying late fees, getting hit with overdrafts, or even losing their housing. All because of a preventable misunderstanding. So here's the advice every beneficiary needs to hear. Treat that October 31st deposit as untouchable. Lock it down. Do not touch it until November 1st. If you can, put it into a separate account. Write it on a sticky note. Whatever it takes. Because what feels like a small timing quirk on paper has real-world consequences for millions of Americans. Now, why is this happening? It's not a conspiracy. It's not mismanagement. It's a systemic limitation of how our banking and federal processing systems work. The government doesn't issue payments on weekends or holidays. Banks don't process them. That means when a regular pay date lands on one of those days, the deposit has to move, usually earlier. That's why these changes are predictable. But unless you're watching the calendar closely, or following a reliable source, you can still get blindsided. The most dangerous part. Not knowing. That's where panic starts. That's when people think their payment is missing. They flood the phone lines, call support centers, wait hours on hold, only to find out the deposit came early, or hasn't come yet. The stress, the uncertainty, the fear of financial instability, it's all avoidable. But only if the information gets out. This is why financial awareness matters. If you're on benefits, you already know how tight things are. You don't have the luxury of a mistake. Every dollar counts. So when the calendar changes the rhythm of your payments, it's not just a date shift. It's a financial landmine. And this isn't a one-time event. These calendar-driven shifts happen every year. Sometimes twice a year. October is notorious for it. The problem is most people forget. They get caught in the daily grind. And by the time the check hits early, the instinct is to use it. 'Cause the need is always there. But planning ahead is the only way to survive the gap. Let's be blunt. The system's not going to change for you. The calendar will roll over just like it does every year. Weekends will keep showing up. Holidays will keep pushing payments around. And unless you change how you budget and plan, you'll keep getting caught in the same trap over and over. But there's power in knowing the pattern. There's security in understanding that this isn't personal. It's not a mistake. It's the system, and it's predictable. Which means you can prepare. You can make better choices. You can avoid the stress and panic. And this is exactly why educational resources like this channel exist. Because most people aren't going to get this information from their caseworker. They're not getting it from the SSA website. And they're definitely not getting a phone call warning them in advance. That's why it's critical to stay informed, to stay connected, and to rely on sources that break it down clearly, without the bureaucratic jargon. So let's recap what you need to do. If you get 2 payments in October, understand that one of them is not a bonus. It's your November check. Treat it that way. Do not spend it early. Know your specific benefit type. Whether it's SSI, SSDI, retirement, or VA benefits, your payment schedule depends on the program and your birthday or enrollment date. Understand that banks and federal systems do not process payments on weekends or holidays. This isn't a glitch, it's built into the system. Plan ahead. Write down your expected payment dates. Adjust your budgeting strategy. Avoid overdrafts, late fees, and shortfalls by treating early payments as locked funds until the month they're meant to cover. Stay informed. These changes happen every year. Don't let yourself be surprised again. And most importantly, spread the word. There are millions of people just like you, relying on the same checks, facing the same risks, and often unaware of these shifts until it's too late. That's why we're here. To make sure you're not left in the dark. To give you the facts without the fluff. To arm you with the knowledge you need to navigate the system with confidence. If you found this helpful, subscribe. Don't just walk away and forget this. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the next update. Because these schedule changes will happen again, and next time you'll want to be the first to know. Turn on notifications. Share this video with someone you know who receives Social Security. Let's make sure no one gets caught off guard by a system that won't warn them, but one that can absolutely be understood and navigated with the right support. This isn't just about money. It's about peace of mind. And that starts with knowing what's coming. Think about it. Most people receiving SSI or SSDI are not sitting on savings accounts. They're not cushioned by retirement portfolios. They're not swiping platinum cards with room to spare. They're living on a fixed income where every dollar has a name. Rent, food, medicine, utilities. There's no buffer. There's no breathing room. And when the calendar pulls a payment back a few days or a few weeks, it doesn't just inconvenience people. It threatens their ability to stay housed, fed, and afloat. And the emotional toll is heavy. The stress of looking at your bank account and not seeing the deposit when you expected it is paralyzing. Your heart sinks. Panic creeps in. You wonder if something went wrong, if there was a glitch, if your benefits were cut off. That moment of fear. It happens every time there's a calendar-driven shift. Unless you knew it was coming. This is what predictable chaos looks like. 'Cause yes, it's predictable. But only if someone tells you. Otherwise, it feels like the floor just dropped out. October 2023 is a perfect example. For SSI recipients, there's no November check. Let that sink in. If you spend that October 31st deposit before the calendar hits November 1st, you're done. You'll be sitting through the first full week of November with nothing in your account. And what comes in November? Rent, utilities, winter heating bills in some states. And for those without backup, that early October check becomes a silent trap. It's money that whispers, "Spend me now," while the calendar holds a cruel surprise around the corner. That's why the guidance is so strict. Treat that October 31st payment as locked. It's not yours until November starts. Write it on a post-it. Stick it to your debit card. Tell a friend to hold you accountable. Do whatever it takes. Because when you're working with limited income, strategy is your best protection. And don't forget, it's not just SSI that's affected. Social Security, disability, and retirement benefits follow a different pattern, but they're just as vulnerable to weekend and holiday shifts. If your birthday falls in the first third of the month, your check usually hits on the second Wednesday. But what happens when that Wednesday is a holiday? Or what if it's preceded by a weekend that delays processing? Suddenly you're off by days. And if your rent is due on the 1st, a few days delay can mean late fees, or worse. Let's talk about what this means for veterans as well. Many VA benefit recipients are on similarly rigid monthly schedules. And if you're managing multiple benefits, say SSI and VA, you've got double the risk for confusion. Because each program has its own rules, its own processing dates, and its own quirks around holidays and weekends. It's a bureaucratic puzzle, and no one's handing you the manual. This is the kind of system where those who know the pattern survive. And those who don't, they suffer needlessly. And here's something else the government won't tell you. This will keep happening. October isn't a one-off. It's part of a yearly pattern. Payment shifts like this happen every time the first of the month lands on a weekend or a federal holiday. It happens in January. It happens in May. It happens in July. But unless you're following this closely, you won't see it coming. You'll get surprised. Again. And again. That's why we're telling you now. So next year, you'll remember October. You'll know the signs. You'll prepare. Because let's not sugarcoat it, if you don't plan, you'll pay. Late fees. Missed bills. Overdrafts. Shut-off notices. That's the reality of living on a razor-thin income. A single unexpected shift in your check can cascade into a financial crisis. And it's all avoidable with a little knowledge and a little strategy. Now here's where we get practical. If you get an early payment, especially that October 31st SSI deposit, write it down in your calendar as November's money. Do not adjust your spending habits. Do not let that number in your bank account lie to you. Because on November 1st, nothing else is coming. That money. That's it. Treat it like it doesn't exist until the month flips. And if you're not sure when your payment is supposed to come, get ahead of it. Print out a payment calendar. Mark your benefit type. Track your birthdays. Look at federal holidays. Figure it out now, before the money hits your account. Ask yourself these questions. Are you on SSI or SSDI? Did your benefits start before 1997? When is your birthday? What federal holidays are coming up? These questions determine your schedule. Not guessing. Not assumptions. Another smart move. Build a mini emergency buffer if you can. Set aside even $20 from your early payment, label it rollover, and use it in the gap weeks. Is it easy? No. But even a little cushion can give you breathing room when the system inevitably pushes your payment around again. And yes, we know not everyone has the flexibility to save. But this is where awareness becomes your strongest tool. Knowing the date changes before they hit lets you plan what little you do have with accuracy. Because if you're budgeting in the dark, the smallest disruption becomes a disaster. Now let's talk about what not to do. Do not assume your payment is late just because it didn't hit on your usual day. Don't panic and start calling Social Security unless you've checked the calendar first. Most of the time, those calls won't get you anywhere. You'll sit on hold for an hour only to be told the check already came early, or is still on the way. That time, that stress, that anxiety, all avoidable with good information. And do not assume that an early payment is a bonus or windfall. That's the biggest trap. That mindset is what leads to a November with no money. The system won't remind you. Your bank won't flag it. You have to be the one to pause, calculate, and plan. This is what financial survival looks like under a rigid, outdated, and impersonal government system. It doesn't care if you're confused. Doesn't send you reminders. It just moves the money and leaves you to figure out the rest. But you can take control. Not over the system but over your response to it. Because with the right information, these payment shifts go from surprise attacks to planned events. And that shift in perspective, that's everything. This is where our platform steps in. We are committed to making these patterns visible. We don't deal in fluff. We don't waste time. We tell you what's changing, why it's happening, and how to adapt. Because you deserve better than confusion. You deserve clarity. And that's what we deliver. We need to talk about how this mess doesn't just hit your wallet. Hits your peace of mind. Because when Social Security payments shift, when checks show up early with no warning, or fail to show up at all on the day you expected, it creates a crisis of trust. You start second-guessing the system. You start second-guessing yourself. Did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? Is my benefit getting cut off? And then the spiral starts. You're on the phone with your bank. You're calling Social Security. You're rechecking your balance a dozen times, hoping you just missed the deposit somehow. All of that stress, all of that emotional labor, when in reality the check came early silently because of a calendar quirk. No notice, no alert, just one of the most important deposits in your life, quietly moved without warning. That's not okay. It's not okay that millions of people, seniors, veterans, disabled Americans, are left in the dark like this, forced to piece together a puzzle that the government doesn't even bother to explain clearly. But now you know. You know that if you're getting 2 checks in October, one of them belongs to November. You know not to touch it, not to treat it like a windfall, not to celebrate what looks like extra cash, because it's not extra. It's an early arrival, disguised as generosity but actually just a result of processing rules and non-business days. And here's where people get burned the most, when they confuse timing with generosity. The system isn't giving you more. It's just rearranging the dates like shuffling cards. And if you don't keep track, you'll play the wrong hand at the worst time. Some folks say, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a few days. That's because they don't live the reality. They don't know what it's like to be counting quarters at the end of the month. They don't understand that a few days can mean eviction. A few days can mean no groceries, a missed insulin refill, or a gas tank that stays empty while you try to get to the doctor. For millions of Americans, Social Security isn't supplemental income. It's the only income. So when that money moves, even slightly, it shakes everything. And when it moves twice in 1 month and then disappears the next, that's not a shift. That's a shockwave. Now let's talk about planning for the bigger picture. Because while this video is about October, the principle applies year-round. If the first of the month lands on a weekend or a federal holiday, your deposit's getting moved. It could land in the previous month. You could find yourself with double deposits, then nothing. And if you're not looking ahead, you'll think the system failed you, when in fact it was right on schedule. Just a different schedule. So what do? You take control where you can. You don't have to be a financial expert. You don't need fancy spreadsheets. You just need to track your expected payment dates. Build a simple list. Mark the months where an early payment is likely. Mark the months where no payment will come because it already hit early. That alone can save you from overdrafts and late fees. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. But it's real. And it's powerful. Because predictability is a lifeline. Especially when you're dealing with a system this complex, this impersonal, and this unforgiving. And if you're listening to this thinking, I've been caught off guard before, it won't happen again. Good. Hold on to that. Make this the year you stop being surprised. Because once you understand the calendar, once you understand the system's rules, you stop being a victim of it. You start operating on your own terms. Let's be honest. Social Security's communication is lacking. They won't warn you about these changes. You won't get a letter. You won't get a call. They won't text you. You'll wake up one morning, check your balance, and the money's just there. And if you weren't expecting it, you'll think, well, lucky me. Well, that's not luck. That's a countdown. And if you're not careful, that countdown hits 0 before you realize it. So here's the deal. You now have what so many people don't. The facts. You know why the checks are shifting. You know how the system works. And you know the risk of spending early and suffering later. Now it's time to share that knowledge. Share this video with someone who's on SSI or SSDI. Share it with someone who's on a fixed income. Post it in a community group. Text it to your neighbor. Because we all know someone who's walking into this October blind. And we have a chance to help them before they fall into the gap. And if this helped you, if this saved you from confusion, panic, or financial stress, then do the smart thing. Subscribe. Click the button. Turn on notifications. This channel doesn't do fluff. We do facts. We track these changes before they hit your bank account so you're never caught off guard again. This is about dignity. About peace of mind. About knowing what's coming and having a plan. October's payment shift is coming. You're ready. Let's keep it that way. Stay informed. Stay sharp. And we'll see you in the next update right here.